Thanks for joining us on Squawk. I'm Bruce Whitfield. You're watching CNBC Africa, first in business worldwide. David Shapiro from Sasfin and Sasha Norishkin from Bernanke are here to share the latest market news. I'll tell you what, the Russians, they're all coming. You've got Russian roots, he's all Russian. I'm always in a hurry. So yeah, we've got something in common on that particular front. Tapering, Bernanke, I just wish he'd go and give it to somebody else who's prepared to tell us what's really going on in the world.
No, it's not his fault. It's unfortunately the markets can't quite understand it, and he has to keep explaining it over and over again. Like little children. Eventually they're getting the story and they're saying, oh, okay. And I think that's the good thing about it. All he's saying, to put it very simply, he says, if I need to put my foot on the pedal, I will. If I need to lift it off, I will. Yeah. Simple.
And that's the big challenge he's got, of course, is knowing when to do that. But has he announced that he's going yet, or will that come later?
Well, he does. I mean, he has to go, I think.
At the end of
January.
A lot of hints. He's not going to Jackson Hole this year, which is the big meeting. That's actually arranged by the Kansas Fed. So it's not all the Fed, but they arrange it every year. And he says, well, I don't really have to go. It's for the Kansas people to appoint it. But that's where Greenspan made his last speech and actually welcomed in and gave Bernanke some kind of hint as to what lay ahead. So I think the fact that he's not going there is a very strong signal.
Because he doesn't know what lies ahead, so he can't give a hint as to what lies ahead. Exactly that. But we've got a situation, Sasha, where markets lose a bit of confidence, fall back to 38, 39,000. Your clients then get into a tiz and a panic. They phone you, foaming at the mouth. Some of them, I'm sure. And then suddenly Bernanke speaks and everything gets back to normal. It's deeply frustrating, this higgledy-piggledy market we find.
Yeah, and like I said to David, it's a bit childish, isn't it? You know, everyone needs their comfy blankie every time he speaks. And some people say, well, why doesn't he just not say anything altogether? He should keep his...
Can you imagine the crisis that would cause?
Yeah, and I think, remember that it's just in the last 18 months or so that the Fed has begun communicating. There used to be no Q&A session after an FOMC meeting. I mean, so it's just more recently with more communication that people have become more anxious, go figure. If I'm going to feed you with lots of information, that should mean that you're less anxious.
But then the secret here is actually to hear what he says and to ignore what the market does.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think to translate that, the fact that he is going to take his foot off the pedal is a very good sign. It means that the US economy is self-sustaining. It's got its own momentum. It's on the path to recovery. And we can finally raise interest rates. And why do you need to raise interest rates? That savers can actually make some money because they've been punished for the last 5 years.
There's such a huge disincentive to save. I mean, there's an incentive to invest, even though that's beginning to lose a bit of impetus at the moment because markets aren't particularly doing anything exciting and not going anywhere, and dividend flows aren't that secure. Come on, pick a fight. Come on, you want to fight? You want to fight?
The market's been up 15% this year, the S&P 500.
The S&P 500, that is not the market. That is their market.
The lead market in the world.
I'm not invested in the S&P 500 and nor is my pension.
You should start.
But
I don't care.
Bruce, to take your side on that.
Thank you.
Over the last 10 years,
he's my friend.
Over the last 10 years, the S&P, zero.
Absolutely.
It's only now that it's broken through, a 15% gain has pushed us beyond where it was 10 years ago.
And on an inflation-adjusted basis, back then it's like 1900. But to be fair, back then it was trading on a 33 multiple, and now it's forward 14 and a half.
Okay, but is that is still historically quite elevated for the S&P?
Not really, 14 and a half, no.
So we're fair value on the S&P.
The best market to be in at the moment is the US market. You want to make money, go US. You want good dividend yields, go US. So that happens in the world in world financial market. We had it 10 years ago. It's shifting. It's nothing serious. This is how cycles work.
In our real world, where is our cycle? Has it got two flat tires and the handlebars need oiling?
South Africa. The South African cycle, I think it's quite worrying. We're seeing it coming through in consumer numbers, mining production, manufacturing production coming down. So I think we've got some tough times ahead. And I'm quoting the Minister of Finance.
There's that part of it. And then there's the ShopRite trading update this week, which gives us a very clear indicator. If ShopRite is seeing sales grow at a slower rate than was anticipated. It gives you an indication as to people who would ordinarily need to spend money on food I don't know what they're eating, but they're not eating stuff from ShopRite as much.
But yet Woolies, did either of you see the Woolies trading update? Much better than people
So people are trading up from ShopRite to Woolies?
Well, I'm not too sure. I think it gives a tale of two consumers.
Absolutely.
That is exactly what it is. So the kind of middle to lower income consumer in the South African context is under pressure. Top end, seemingly fine.
There's just one thing. Don't get depressed, because we've always got people who don't read the headlines, who actually go and make money. As like Woolworths, like Aspen, like Naspers, like Bidvest, companies like that. So while the broader economy is taking pain, you'll always find people, companies that are doing well.
And those are the ones, obviously, to hunt out. Cell C is getting interesting, isn't it? I mean, Eleanor Craig's been there for just over a year. What are you laughing at?
I never know why he went there. You know,
he was bored. There weren't any birds left to photograph.
Anyway.
Yeah, but here's a guy who is having a crack at his old company. And it's fantastic that he's doing it, and he's shaking the tree, and he's actually enjoying it. And he's quite a dry character. He's not an effervescent communicator, but you can hear somewhere deep inside he's chortling to himself that he's making his old pals at Vodacom sweat. Just a little.
I don't think so.
Hey.
I saw their trading update this morning. Pretty good.
The trading update may be good, but what they're having to do to get that trading update is a lot harder than if Eleanor Craig wasn't there.
Maybe. I'm not sure. They're getting the data. They're getting increase in data traffic and that. They're generating huge amounts of cash. The shares are sitting on a 6-7% dividend yield. It still remains one of my favorite picks. Eleanor Craig or not.
But he set it up.
Interesting that most of the revenues are still derived from South Africa, but the potential in some of their geographies is much bigger.
Who are we talking about? We're talking about
Vodacom. Vodacom, because I worked it out on a subscriber basis. They cover nearly 200 million people, or potentially could. So whilst South Africa only represents 25% of that, I think 88% of their revenues come from South Africa. And the point that David makes on data revenue, Gartner suggested that by the year 2015 there'd be more tablet sales than PC sales. So we're looking at 300 million plus tablet sales a year, and I don't know, they only sell 3 million smartphones. Well, MTN did last year in Nigeria alone. So the base is virtually zero.
And the kids are using, in fact, I was in the canteen at lunchtime.
What defined kids?
Those snivelling little 45-year-olds.
45, yeah. In fact, I saw on 702 this morning, they said, do you know it's 50 years to the day that Elvis made his first record? I said, the worst thing is I remember it. That's true.
It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, time does fly. So we have Lily's Leaf and Elvis.
Well, Lily's Leaf is 50, Elvis is 60 years.
Sure.
Anyway.
He would have been a toppy.
The worst thing is I was a Pat Boone fan, and I hate to admit that on air.
He
was such a drip.
He was such a drip, but he was a very pretty drip by all accounts, so I'm told. He was. Okay, so Cell C doesn't bug you at all from a cell phone competitive environment? Not worrying you at all?
I think the first to market, Vodacom, obviously have still captured, and people are reluctant to port. I mean, you only port when you become so tired of your service provider before. And it's not as if you're getting a massive discount. I think the mobile companies are going to be careful not to follow the same route as in Kenya, for instance, or in East Africa, where it was a race to the bottom. Because then, unfortunately, believe it or not, the customer loses out in the long run.
Well, they stop investing. I mean, there's no money to invest. And
exactly. So everyone wants 4G LTE, but they don't want to pay for it. Go figure.
Seems reasonable. I don't know. But certainly, okay. So cell phone wars aren't going to make a big difference in our lives. Also, from the financial services sector this week, we've seen First Rand get another blood nose on the African continent outside of South Africa. That's another one of those big stories. It just can't get any foothold in other markets.
But I think Africa's a lot tougher than we make believe. I think we market it well. But actually getting there and doing the business and getting things right, I think is a lot tougher. In my view, it's going to take, you're seeing ShopRite, we're seeing good numbers coming through and that, and I think Whitey Basson seems to have it sewed up, but I think for other people playing in Africa, it's not that easy.
1,800 stores, ShopRite, and of that only 155 are outside of our borders. So it's still early days.
It most certainly is. A company that's not bothering with the rest of the African continent, but is spreading its wings elsewhere using the Vitality program as a springboard. Vitality is available in the United States, where it left it, with some insurers there, and now in Singapore. This is a big bet.
Yeah, AIA, as I worked out, got a market cap in rands of 515 billion or 520 billion rands. So it's a big player.
It's half the size of British American Tobacco.
I think the challenge there, because how do I know? My daughter works for Discovery in New York. And the big challenge there that they've had, and I'm not quoting her, but I can pick it up, is you've got to try and convince people to change their lifestyle. You know, this is anti-smoking. This is going to gym. This is what Vitality is all about, a better life, eating well. Now, that's all very well when you live in South Africa, where we have a pretty easy lifestyle. You know, try and convince the Americans, and also try and get that kind of culture going in Asia. You know, I always think of the Chinese spitting and smoking and, you know, eating rice and that. I say, you've got to change that whole culture. Great.
Yeah, but you do get a rebate on your life insurance premium. I know this.
Yes.
You know, because so with the healthy living and being able to tell them you don't smoke, and they can even tell if you went for a run this morning and what you eat if you want to log
George Orwell wrote a book called Adrian Gore, 1984. Yes.
You know, my daughter walks around with a little monitor, because if she does 10,000 steps a day or something like this, you get
points.
Points.
Yeah, but it's genius, because basically Discovery makes you do your own admin. Keep yourself healthy so you stay out of the hospitals and we don't have to pay for your bills. Awesome.
Look, I think it's a great product, and that change culture.
Is there not a potential conflict of interest between AIA in Singapore and Ping An in China? Do they overlap at all?
I think they're two completely different businesses. You must remember the one's Hong Kong based, so they service high net worth individuals. That's as far as I understand. That's AIA, correct. So they got 13 million on their book, nearly 25 million separate policies, which leads me to believe that once they've got you, they sign you up for life insurance and medical insurance. So they can stick the two together.
If you're in Hong Kong, you've got to climb the stairs. You can't catch the lift.
Exactly, yeah.
That's the only place to walk. Oh, that's this part of the program done for this evening. More from David Lepeu and Sasha Narishkin in just a moment.